What's up, guys? That Really Gross Guy here, and we're back. I'm going to drop some Anthem knowledge on you guys today. For those of you who are trying to complete the faction challenge in the game, and maybe you have some other reason you're trying to go and seek out the different factions in the game to take them out, but the faction challenge in this game requires you to go out and kill, I believe, anywhere from 250 to 500 enemies from each specific faction in the game in order to receive some sort of reward. Now, I do know that it's anywhere from getting some coin in the game all the way up to getting some masterwork, what are they called? The little relic thingies. So in order to go about doing that, I have some dungeons for you guys that specifically will spawn specific factions within them. So the only discretion I want to throw in this video is there was recently an update to the game, and I noticed, at least out of one of these dungeons, which is a dungeon that actually doesn't typically spawn with any faction in it, it just has some wildlife in it, so it may be tied to only this dungeon. However, I did notice that there was a world event in a dungeon, and that might tweak these spawns occasionally. But other than that, every time I have entered these dungeons, which I have done multiple times, I have found the exact same faction within them. And this is going to be the best way, other than strongholds, which we'll talk about in just a second, to go about farming these factions. The reason why I bring up the strongholds is because the Tyrant Mine, which is the first stronghold you get access to, gives you a significant amount of Scar to kill. That is probably the best way for you to go about killing Scar. Also, it does give you several treasure chests to open for rewards. So the Tyrant Mine is a great way to just in general kill Scar as well as gain a significant amount of loot. So we'll go over the Scar dungeons as well, but just keep in mind that the Tyrant Mine is a good way to get those Scar kills. Also, the Temple of Scar also is a Scar stronghold, but that's unlocked at the end of the game, so not everyone might have access to it. However, if you do, this is also another good place to get some Scar kills as well as some loot. But if you are trying to seek out the Dominion or the Scar or the Outlaws, I have specific dungeons for you. When it comes to the Dominion, there is also a stronghold which has Dominion in it. However, the majority of that stronghold is a boss fight, so you probably won't gain as many Dominion kills as you would if you were to go about these dungeons and take those Dominion out. If you want just specifically loot, then maybe the stronghold is better for you, but specifically, like I said, this is for that faction challenge in the game that comes out pretty much every week. So with that said, if you're trying to hunt down, we'll go with the Scar first, because I mentioned they typically are much better off farmed in the Tyrant Mine, but if for whatever reason you want to go about farming out these dungeons, you can find the Scar in the Mandible, which you can see here on the map. The Mandible is a relatively large dungeon, definitely not as big as a stronghold, but it has about 2 large rooms in which Scar will spawn. So you can come out of here with at least 50 Scar kills from start to finish. Now, when it comes to these dungeons, if you do die, typically it allows for the enemy to respawn and repopulate that dungeon to some degree. So it is possible to easily get more than 50. If you go in there solo and you die a few times, you'll come out with definitely more than that. But if you jump in there with a party and you blaze through it in one go, keep in mind that you may not get 50 because of how many kills your allies get and all that stuff. But those dungeons are specifically populated with at least 50 Scar. Also, if you're trying to get the Scar, the Bane engine is another option, which you can see here on the map. This one seems to be a little bit smaller than the Mandible. However, it does seem to spawn probably about 40 Scar or so. So doing this all the way through, you could probably walk out of there with 40 or more Scar kills. And then lastly is the Core. And the Core is the smallest Scar dungeon. And I'd say you'd probably get 20-25 Scar kills out of this dungeon. So in my personal opinion, this one isn't really all that worth it, especially when you have access to the stronghold. So I would keep that in mind. But the scar can be seen on the map here. But anyways, let's move on to the Dominion. There's something interesting about the Dominion because two of these dungeons are actually very close to each other. Those two dungeons are the Sovereign Mine as well as the Vault. And the best thing about these two dungeons are they're both fairly large. The Sovereign Mine is going to give you about 50 Dominion kills, and from start to finish, like I said, without any extra spawns. And then the Vault is right nearby, however it is underwater, so you'll have to kind of go down underwater and discover this vault for yourself. And this one will give you probably 60 or so. It's probably about the same size as the Sovereign Mine. However, for whatever reason, I felt like I got more spawns in the vault. But, like I said, because these two are so close to each other, you could go over there, knock both of these out, and get, well, easily over 100 kills if you do this yourself. The other option is you could go immediately over to the right and find the Foundry, and the Foundry will also give you about 50 enemies to kill. Like I said, these larger dungeons that have 50 or more enemies typically have 2 large rooms in it. So these are the 3 best ways, in my opinion, right now to farm the Dominion, especially, like I said, when the Vault and the Sovereign Mine are so close to each other. So there is another option. It is called the Well, which you can see here on the map, but this is a smaller dungeon, only giving you maybe around 30 enemy spawns. And while it's not too bad, because I feel like this is a good dungeon to take down with a sniper rifle, because you can kind of sit back and pick off a lot of these Dominion with just your sniper. However, because it is just a single room for the enemy spawns, I feel like you could better spend your time up towards the Sovereign Mine or the Vault if you're just trying to knock out as many kills as possible. But anyways, those are the 3 dungeons for the Dominion. I'll repeat those. Those are the Foundry, the Well, the Sovereign Mine, and the Vault for the Dominion. Now, the Outlaws. The problem I have with the Outlaws right now, at least at this point in time in the game, is the Outlaws are not in any strongholds. So in order to farm them, you're going to pretty much want to go to the dungeons and farm these guys out. Now, I do know on the map, fairly close to Fort Tarsus, there is a outlaw section where outlaw do spawn. However, once you've burned through some of these outlaws, it'll take a significant amount of time for these guys to respawn, and it also could technically bring out a world event, which may not be outlaws. So in order to guarantee yourself getting outlaw kills, I have a couple locations for you guys. The first one is going to be the Necropolis. And the Necropolis is a smaller dungeon, unfortunately, which will probably net you around 30 outlaw kills or so. So this one is not the best place to farm these outlaws. So if you're in that area and maybe you only need 30 outlaw kills, this is a good place to do it. But the Shrine is also a pretty good place, and it's pretty easy to access the Shrine. That will give you about 50 outlaw spawns, which is pretty good. It's another larger dungeon with about 2 large rooms, pretty full of outlaws, so another great spot. If you want another 50 room, you can go to the Hollow, which is a little bit off the beaten path, over to the left side of the map, which will also net you around 50 outlaw kills, but this one is a little bit away from some of the other stuff you might be doing. If you're farming Dominion and you just want to drop down in this section and go down to the Hollow and also get your outlaw kills, it's probably a good way to do it. But the Hollow is, I mean, it's a good place to farm outlaws, so you can head over there and do that. Lastly is probably my favorite place to farm the outlaws is the dungeon. Now, the dungeon is very close to the Fortress of Dawn. If you head over there, you can very easily farm some of the Dominion that typically spawn over around the Fortress of Dawn, and then you can also head inside and fight about 60 or more Outlaws. This one is similar to the Dominion, where I felt like it was just as big as some of the other dungeons. However, I felt like I got significantly more spawns in here for some reason. So I'd say you'd get minimum of 60 outlaw kills if you clear this dungeon out as well. But that pretty much is it for the Dominion factions. I do want to point out, at this point in time, the Haven is on the map. It is also a dungeon. However, that is the wildlife dungeon that does not have a faction in it. Now, like I said, I have noticed a world event has spawned in there previously, and I fought Scar inside of there. However, you can't guarantee going over to the Haven and getting any faction kills, so I would completely cross that off your list. And also, on the map, I'll show you over here, there is a dungeon that people have discovered, and I've flown over there myself to see if I can gain access to it. However, it looks like a dungeon, it looks like you can enter here, except it is blocked off by this giant gate. And unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have access to this, at least at the time I am recording this video. I will make a note maybe down in the description, or maybe I'll even refresh this video if any changes come to the game, especially if there's any additional dungeons. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. These are the different locations. I do have this map here for you guys. I do have everything circled in terms of the color according to the faction that I've set up. I also, forgive me for the colors of these, I did want to make sure that it was as colorblind friendly as possible. And what I mean by that are, I know a significant number of people are colorblind to red-green colorblindness, so I wanted to make sure that I did not have any red-green on the map, at least in terms of these dungeons for you guys. So anyways, that is going to be it from me, guys. I hope this video helped you out, and let me know if you find any changes, if you go into a dungeon and you've found different enemies because of an update or something like that, or if you start to see some of these world events in dungeons left and right, and some of these spawns are no longer accurate, or also if you stumbled across something that I didn't notice. I would love to have you drop that in the comments as well. It could help out a number of other people that are trying to accomplish this challenge, and that would be great. But anyways, that's going to be it for me, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you the best of luck with this challenge, and I hope to see you guys again in another video. Blow!